I've heard a lot of good things about Henry Archer, and I'm about to find out if they were true or not. Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Yes indeed, Henry Archer is a name that has been popping up more and more on my Facebook and Instagram feed over the last 12 months or so. They're a Danish brand, and as well as making minimalist watches, they also now make plenty of dive watches. I've heard a lot of good things about them in terms of quality and value, two things that are high on my personal list of priorities. So when Neil at the micro brand store said he was doing a limited edition Malachite dial collaboration with the brand, I said I would love to give one a spin. As such, this video is sponsored by the micro brand store. Neil is taking pre-orders on these starting today and for the next month, and they're only making 500 with this dial. I will of course therefore leave a link in the description of the video. If you see what you like, check that out and check out the other reviews of the watch on YouTube. So what is going on today then? Well, it's kind of a split review. In part, I'm reviewing the watch, of course, the Henry Archer NORDSO. NORDSO meaning North Sea, by the way. On the surface, it seems like a neatly designed everyday skin diver that ticks all of the boxes in terms of specifications. And then in part, it's a review of the Malachite dial. This is a limited edition collab which you can only get through the microbrand store. Now, the Malachite combined with the exclusivity does add a considerable premium to the cost of the base NORDSO. So, is the NORDSO worth buying in the first place? And if so, is it then worth paying the extra for the Malachite? The packaging is neat and tidy. You get a box from the microbrand store, a polishing cloth, a certificate of authenticity, more spare links than I have ever seen on a diver. Seriously, that'll cover even the biggest of boys today. A spring bar removal tool, even though the watch has actually got quick release spring bars, and an instruction manual. And inside the pouch is the watch. 2-year warranty, by the way, and the microbrand offers a shadow warranty of their own. So if this or any brand vanishes into the ether 6 months after you buy the watch, they will cover the warranty. That is great to see, and it's a great reason to buy from the microbrand store. In terms of the watch, let's do dimensions and specifications. There are no surprises here. It's a 40-20, which is going to be a great size for most people. 40mm in diameter, 20mm between the lugs, and it's exceptionally slim for a 200-meter diver, coming in at just under 11mm thick. I measure it at 10.9mm on my calipers. Lug to lug is also very wearable at 47, and sized up for me and my 7-inch wrist with all of those links removed, it weighs in at 141 grams. Great dimensions for a daily as noted. Now water resistance is 200 meters, crystal is flat sapphire helping to keep it slim, and the movement also helping to keep it slim is a Miyota 9039, which you can see today thanks to a sapphire exhibition caseback. It's a decent looking movement with those Tokyo stripes, but if you're a fan of caseback spec sheets, you're in for a treat with this one. Alright, deep breath. Henry Archer NORDSO Malachite TMS limited edition with your limited edition number, 200 meters, sapphire crystal, 316L steel, BGW9 loom, and designed in Denmark. And then there's a custom printed rotor featuring the microbrand store logo, name, and exclusive edition, and all of the usual Miyota markings with the jewel count and model number, etc. Some bedtime reading for you there, I'm sure. But again, nice that they've gone to the trouble of emphasising the collaboration and the limited edition. The Miyota, as you may well be aware, features 24 jewels. It hacks, it hand winds, it has an accuracy of between -20 to +30 seconds per day maximum variance, so that's a little bit sharper than a Seiko NH for example. It also has a higher beat rate and therefore a smoother sweep of the second hand. Now I know the dial is a focus today, but before we get to that, let's have a look at the case finish, because the case finish is very good. Now we already know they've taken full advantage of the Miyota to keep the watch slim. Have a look at that mid case. That is so slim. I reckon only around 3 of the watch's 11mm. Now of course a super slim mid case means a rather large case back and bezel, but it does trick the eye into thinking the watch is slimmer than it is. I've seen a number of brands do this recently. I think it looks great. The side of the case has a very fine horizontal brush to it. There's a high polish chamfer running almost all the way around the case, including the lower edge, which is there for decoration only because the lower edge is still some way away from the wrist. Both bezel and crown are knurled for grip. Now the unguarded crown is a good size, it offers plenty of purchase and is therefore nice and easy to use. But I must say the fact they've gone for a polished finish on the bezel means it's not all that easy to grip. You do have to give it a good squeeze. 120 click unidirectional dive time. I guess it's as grippy as it needs to be, but not perhaps as grippy as it could be. The bracelets are fairly standard, but rather nice 7-link beads of rice. There's a good taper from 20 down to 15.5, and then back up to just under 18 for the clasp. Now, the beads of rice is definitely a nod to this watch's overall skin diver vibe, but they then juxtapose a far more modern looking dial, handset and colour scheme against this retro bracelet. The beads are all polished and the two outer links have a brushed finish, and it's a good clasp, fully milled upper and scissor, double security pushers. It's big enough to balance the watch, but not so big that it feels bulky or cumbersome when it's on wrist. Thanks in part to that taper on the bracelet, meaning it's a narrower clasp than it otherwise would have been. And as is now the standard these days, I'm so happy to be able to say that, it features 1 centimetre of on-the-fly adjustability from a built-in ratcheting system. The Henry Archer logo etched into the clasp finishes it off nicely. Let's get back to the dial then. Now, I have reviewed plenty of funky dial materials in the past, but this is the first malachite that I've looked at, and malachite seems to be the hot material right now. It's a naturally occurring gemstone thought to offer protection against bad luck. Now, if that isn't the perfect excuse to buy a new watch, I don't know what is. Your new watch actually makes you luckier. They've used a 2mm slice of the mineral on top of a metal plate and then applied the indices on top of that. It's a fairly standard layout, rectangles at 12, 3, 6 and 9, circles everywhere else, but the hands are unusual. They're skeletonized and they're rounded at the tips. Definitely a little more fun and playful than your standard swords or fence posts. They've also played around a little bit with colour. There's a printed minute track with white minute markers, but green 5-minute markers complementing the green malachite. And perhaps you've already noticed there's some green in the ceramic bezel insert as well. It's fully graded to 15 with green dots and then marked on the 5s thereafter, with those circles and rectangles playing off the equivalent shapes on the dial. Now, malachite is of course a naturally occurring mineral, so every one of these dials is going to be different from every single other one of these dials. Plus, there are inherent variations within the dials themselves. For example, the top half of this one looks quite different to the bottom half. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to be okay with the random nature of nature, if you see what I mean. Alright, lume. I have heard good things about the lume on these Henry Archers, and I wasn't disappointed. BGW9 Superluminova, and seemingly a lot of it on the hands, the indices and the bezel insert as well. Super bright initially, but when I turn the speed up, it stays bright. It's very good. If I slow it down again at the end of the test, you can see where this is heading, I'm sure. The hands are going to fade before the indices. Perhaps they could have done with another couple of layers therefore on the hands, but overall, very good lume. So this one is definitely shaping up as a great daily wear piece then, assuming of course that it actually wears great. And I'm happy to tell you that it does. If you paid attention to the dimensions, there were no surprises, no nasties there. The lug to lug is good, it has a very slim profile, lovely taper on the bracelet, etc, etc. The clasp balances the head of the watch well, plus you have that centimetre of built-in adjustment from the clasp, so you will always get the fit that you want with this one. There is a lot of light play from that flat crystal plus flat high gloss bezel insert though. You can see that especially I think from this pocket shot. And don't forget those high polished beads of rice also make the bracelet stand out far more than an all brush oyster would, for example. But overall, it's a pleasure on wrist. It would be an easy watch to live with long term. Alright, I know you look forward to this as much as I do. It's the moans and niggles section. As I said, it's kind of a split review today. One review of the watch, one review of the dial. As far as the watch is concerned, I do have a few little nitpicks. The most obvious one is that the bracelet is just held together by push pins. Now, the Microbrand store and Henry Archer are both clear that this was part of the design plan, and there are certain benefits of using push pins. But Rolex don't use push pins, do they? Screws, therefore, would have been nicer. The high gloss black ceramic bezel is perhaps a little overbearing. Maybe they would have been better going with a matte or semi-gloss version. The focus here really should be on the dial, shouldn't it? But the bezel seems determined to be the centre of attention. And this is only one example, but the bezel doesn't quite line up. It's either a third out to the left or 2/3 out to the right, like it is here. And if I go in super close with my 2x macro lens, you begin to see some rough edges, both to the indices and also to the printing. Now the white minute markers are a bit rough, and the green 5-minute markers rather miss their marks. Every one of them is a little bit off. So on to the Malachite dial then. As discussed, every piece is unique and subject to the imperfections that nature has bestowed upon it. I guess you're just going to have to cope with those funny, blurry, indistinct sections that look like the paper got stuck in the photocopier a little bit. Yeah, there are sections of the dial, pretty much the whole of the top half, that look really spectacular. But there are sections that look a little bit wonky. That crescent line, for example, that arcs from 4 over to 8. But that's just how it's going to be with this material, I suppose. So you're just going to have to accept it. And finally, the price. A regular Henry Archer NORDSO from the Microbrand store in a range of modern and playful colours is going to cost you $440 US. Plus there was a spin the wheel thing, I'm sure you can get that closer to 400. Now, if you like the look and the modern retro fusion, I think that is a perfectly reasonable price. This Henry Archer NORDSO from the Microbrand store is going to cost you at least 50% more than that, $650 minimum, and that's if you pre-order today. If you pre-order it in 3 weeks time, it'll cost you $700 and the full RRP is $750. So do you really want a Malachite dial? Are you prepared to pay 50+% for the same watch to get a Malachite dial? If you are, then you go for it. Personally, I think that is too much of a jump, especially when the likes of Zelos offers the much more expensive GMT version of the 9000 series for the same money. On that basis, I think the purple one's looking pretty good. From the Microbrand store, of course. So there you have it. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video in one piece. While we're on exotic dials, why not check out one meteorite or one forged carbon? I'll see you all again in the next one.